Here's my reflection on week 4, the quiz summary and the discussion questions. We'll start with the quiz summary, and I've made some adjustments in some of your scores. I'll discuss that in just a moment, but the average score now is 94%. We had several 100s and several right around 94, 95%. If you go down through the questions, most were pretty easily scored. There were a couple of you that had troubles on a few of them, but the two questions that were most problematic were these two right here. The interpretation of the magnitude of an effect size statistic, where more than 57% of you got it correct. I went back and I looked in the text, and it's pretty specific about the effect size. There is no, when you're looking and you're comparing studies, you don't look at the measurement that has been used in a particular study. Rather, you just look on the results. And so the correct response is it does not depend on the measures that have been used in the study. It's just the result of the score that was found in the study. And there'll be more on this when we get to effect sizes. I think it's like week 7. They'll make that just a little bit more clear. But that's kind of something that's hard to grasp hold of, because it's like, well, wait, how can you possibly consider studies that weren't measured the same? And this type of analysis, meta-analysis, when you're looking at effect size, you're just looking at the actual score, regardless of whether it was a t-test, an ANOVA. It doesn't really matter. It's just that score, because in inferential statistics, we consider that a standardized score. So that'll become a little bit more clear, and this is the one that I didn't fudge on for some of you. This question, however, put the following steps involved in conducting a literature review. I did fudge on because I felt like even though I had collapsed a couple of the items into one, it was a little confusing. So I gave full credit on this question, and then this next question, it used to say, it says cite now, it used to say search engine for obtaining information about the demographics of performance in American schools. The answer should be the National Center for Educational Statistics. Many of you put Eric because I think you thought when it said search engine that the National Center for Education Statistics isn't a search engine. The reality is, anytime you can drop down into a database and search through a database, it is somewhat like a search engine, but probably not in a way that was completely clear. So I gave full credit on this question as well. The rest of them you did pretty well on, so I just wanted to provide some clarification on the quiz, which brought everyone's scores up. My intention is for all of you, every quiz should be right up above 90. It's just to check for some close reading to have a gist. And so when I see that you've missed questions, I either have a bad question or it was worded in a way because if you're doing some close reading and many of you miss it, it's not a good question. So don't panic when you see that. If I see low scores across the board, I will make an adjustment. Now let's head over to the discussion. In the discussion, I asked you to use Google Scholar. And a few of you said it was the first time that you'd ever used Google Scholar. I think that you can see now the power of Google Scholar is that it is just looking at scholarly publications. Now, you have to put your filter on here because Google Scholar, when people put something into Scholar, you still have to use some critical thinking to say, wait a minute, does that seem like a legitimate journal? Is that a periodical? What exactly is that type of publication? So you still have to have some critical thought, but it isn't the Google search through all of the .com and the .net types of sites that you use with just regular Google. So you were to do a Google Scholar search, and I took from your readings, Teaching to the Test by Gardner. That was in chapter 2, or The Effectiveness of Homework, which some of you had said, you really want to know about this. This is something that's kind of bothering you. I believe that was from week 2. So be creative with your search terms, and this is something that many of you commented on, that you said, wow, when I first used this search term, I got nothing. And then when I reversed this, I got, this type of thing. Search terms are super important. And then in your response, you were supposed to provide the search terms you used and a link to the article so I could go see it. And first of all, figure out, is it a legitimate peer-reviewed type of article, or was it in some sort of periodical, that kind of thing, just so I could find the article. And does this article support teaching to the test or giving homework? And then I asked you for no duplication, so you could open up and if you were late into the discussion and you wanted to use an article but somebody else had it, you had to go find something else. So this discussion prompt was about the process. I really wasn't looking for an answer and for you to support in any way, in a very large way, whether you think homework is a good idea or a bad idea, or whether you think teaching into the test is good or bad. I wanted you to go through the process of using Google Scholar to filter out research. And so 16 of you chose to look for test articles, teaching to the test articles, and 14 of you chose to look at homework, which is different than other years I've taught this. Most of the time, it just tells me there's a shift out there. And I've taught this before. Last couple of years, testing has been bigger on the list and homework down further. So interesting to see how it broke out in this group. On search terms, many of you commented about this. I took a look at the article, and at first it may not have dealt with what you were looking for when you use those search terms, but that is how a review of the literature goes. Sometimes you'll plug in a search term that you think is going to work, and you get articles you're like, no, that's not related. And then you start to drill down. One of my favorite comment from graduate students is that they can't find anything at all related to their research topic. And then I ask them, what are you using as search terms? And I find out they're using things that are very specific, but they need to broaden sometimes to use the word instead of relationship to perhaps communication. Just tweaking those words, using some synonyms sometimes, and as some of you found, reversing the order of the words can be very helpful. You can use other articles you find to see the type of vocabulary they use. And in those, they'll oftentimes have tag words that are used to find that article. So sometimes this goes on for a while. I can sometimes look at 15 to 20 articles on a particular topic before settling on the 5 that are meaning to the research I'm conducting. And when you're doing a thesis or a dissertation, it may be well up into 100 as you're quickly going through these to cite which ones you want. Also, you would be listing the search terms that you use so another researcher could find what you're using. I don't know that any of you, in fact, I doubt any of you actually picked years. There was one of you that picked the year because you wanted something a little more relevant, but there were some old articles. Be careful about the year you're citing. A few of you used 2008 articles and some used 2001. And in fact, there were several of you that used the 2001 article, and I'll share that in just a moment. But, if it's been, 15, 20 years, it's better be a seminal piece of research that everybody still cites as the most important thing. Because as we've discussed, in education, the pendulum swings. And if you're using something that is 10 years old, you really got to question, is this still relevant? And if you put it into a publication, you need to cite why you're using this article, even though it's a little bit old. Let's take a look at that really quick, that some of you used that particular 2 articles. Teaching to the Test by Popham. There were probably, probably 1 person per group that used this particular article. Now this one is from 2001, and it is teaching to the test specifically. It talks about being in an era of high stakes, high stress testing. But in 2001, this was right when we started having No Child Left Behind conversation. This was a much larger issue in terms of high stakes tests, which have now been backed off on in the last 2 administrations in terms of testing. So again, it's one that you would want to consider. Do I really want to use this? My real kind of concern with this is it's from the magazine Educational Leadership, which I subscribe to and get monthly. Love it. Great articles. But when you're using articles from Popular Press or a teaching periodical like this one, make sure that that it's well cited, that you feel like they support their opinions or comments with other types of peer-reviewed articles. And so it's as simple in APA as looking for dates. And as I scroll down through here, I'm thinking to myself, where are the references to the other types of research? And quite honestly, if at the end of the article, there's not a reference section, you got to say to yourself, is this enough? Is this really what I want? And I'll go all the way here now to the end. And in fact, I really am not. It's adapted from a presentation at their annual meeting, and there were no really big, maybe this one in 99. I could look up that statistic to make sure it's accurate. But my point here is if you're going to use this to support, make sure that they've used research to support their positions. The other article that a lot of you used was this one by Dave Posner. And this one also, it was published from JASTR, that's where it came from. But the article was, it was in a magazine periodical as well. Trying to figure, oh yeah, Phi Delta Kappa. Now this particular article it's not refereed, but it is peer reviewed. So, but it's more like a magazine. It is not research. And again, same comments that I just made about the last one. Make sure they're easy to read. The narrative is easy to follow, but make sure they're supporting some of their statements with research. And I would go to straight to the back to see how much of this is based on some actual studies. And in this case, this one has 22 citations that are noted as, by the way, these are citations noted almost as a bibliography like you would see in MLA, but that I am not seeing where it's actually cited specifically in the article. You know, in APA, we say when we have an idea from APA, we cite it immediately in text. It's not just a bibliography of resources we use to construct the article. You are actually citing exact paraphrased thoughts or quotes inside of the article. So again, be careful of using these kinds of articles when you're doing something that's related to a literature review for research or to make a decision. Decide, you know, is this something that's really got some evidence behind it? Okay, those were the two most popular articles cited. Probably one person in each group cited these two articles. And it's because a search term showed up really quickly in the top with the search term teaching to the test. Okay, one final point on that before I move on to the two topics and the two folks that had some really good posts on this. Population studied, country where the data was collected, and the author's point of reference. In other words, when you're looking at these, some of them I was double checking. One of them was a college. The study was on a group of college students in accounting. So you have to decide, is the results generalizable to your situation when you're talking about homework in accounting versus homework in family and consumer science or homework in agricultural courses. So again, you're going through that and going, oh, that doesn't relate to my study. It's too far out there. I can't use it to generalize to my population. The country where the data was collected, if it's something like, there were a few of you that cited an article in Canada, it's pretty close probably to the demographics. You'd want to check that. But if there are many articles out there from foreign journals or even places in Europe where you might say this place in Spain, this place in Italy, even this place in Germany is really probably not typical to my setting and my population. That's why I wanted you to go through the process. Now, on to the two topics here. And I'll put homework first. Franny had this interesting article that she put, and it was a fairly current article. But in there, she stated that the implication sections for this article state that the issue of homework remains academically, intellectually, and socially complex, which I thought was really insightful about this particular topic. Regardless of the teacher's original intention in assigning homework, it is the student's perception of the homework process that will determine the ultimate success. Now that to me was extremely telling. I don't think anyone has ever posted this particular paper and extracted that comment out. And she says, I completely agree with these statements. The design of the homework does not have much significance on the student's perspective. In other words, you could have designed something that was so, in your mind, awesome. But they already have in their mind a predetermined notion of a perception about what homework is. Homework's going to be busy work. Homework's going to take my time. Homework is meaningless sort of work that my teacher is easy, maybe not even going to grade, that kind of thing. And then already they're set up for a perspective going into that homework assignment, which is almost a barrier to their learning. So that was a great article to find. If I can click that one open really quick here and find it as well. Here it is. Here's the article in the abstract. And this was in the School Community Journal 2017. Really relevant article. Good find. Way to go, Franny. I liked that one. The next one, Jessica, she had one on teaching to the test. When I think of teaching to the test, the second definition is one that comes to mind because of the backward design method we focus on. And many of you are familiar with this. You've had courses here at the university. You've had professional development in your districts. If you're not familiar with backward design, do a quick Google and you will learn it quick. But on this method, we focus on what the big ideas are and what students need to remember after class has come and gone. Then we write the test or any other form of assessment with those ideas in mind and create our lessons to cater to the full body of knowledge needed to understand and transfer those big ideas. In this sense, starting with the end in mind or teaching to the test is beneficial to students. So I agree with Gerald's second definition, and this was inside of the cited article that she had. Definition for teaching the test, and I strive to use that format in my class. In other words, and this was a big conversation, is if you are covering the curriculum and the expected outcomes or strands or standards or whatever they might be in your particular area, it sure seems like if the assessments are written that are outcome based, you should be in the zone. But there were many conversations where you felt like that wasn't the process. And my goal here is not to say what to do, to take action, what's right, what's wrong. My goal here was to have you go through the process of doing a search for journal or academic articles on these topics that researchers have covered. Okay. Now there was an interesting, dialogue in this particular group. Jessica Takeri, she's talking about it's an interesting way of testing that it does not help to prepare them for the real world. She's talking about just fact-based types of multiple choice tests. Problem-solving skills are something that is difficult to teach, but yet it is one of the most necessary skills that a person needs to have. I feel that you focus mainly on multiple choice tests, which I agree don't provide opportunity for higher order thinking. What if we provided students with higher order thinking tests during depth knowledge framework or provided opportunities in project-based learning? And those kinds of assessments. And PBL projects are very, very difficult, and grading them is even harder. I agree. I think that that's the mix that you have to find. And if you get into the research and you see that these things really move the needle for achievement, you got to say, how are we assessing them? And quite often, I don't know if they take a lot more money, but they certainly take a lot more time, and they require the administrators to rely on teachers as professionals at being able to assess. And Carrie said, if we had the time to create those types of higher order thinking tests, I think it would be better for our students in the future. Sometimes it's really just easier to create multiple choice tests, and that's absolutely true. But we are looking for higher order thinking and problem solving, and those are difficult to write. And then Judy said, so as well as pay for this, probably most of it. I guess time is money. But if we start to get into the zone to think about, wait a minute, Bloom's taxonomy, why am I asking these lower order questions? Could I be asking questions further up on Bloom's taxonomy related to creativity and synthesis and analysis and those kinds of topics that would cover the bottom things on the way to the top? And this means working with folks in assessment to get the right assessment for the curriculum. Okay, enough on that. Outcomes and testing strategies. Can tests measure higher order thinking? Can they build them to measure problem solving? I think they can, especially if you take a look at Bloom's, which is arguably old, but has withstood the test of time. Now, searching and accessing articles you need. Group 2 had some issues with this, and this reflection is going a little bit longer than I wanted it to go, but this is an important thing. Probably of the 5 or 6 people inside of group 2, more than half of them said, 4 of them I think said, I found the abstract. It's a great abstract. It looks really cool. And there were a few others in other groups, but I can't get to the full article. And so here's one that Amy mentions. This particular article, she has the link, and it's entitled Homework, Students, and Math Achievement. I'm just going to do a couple of these really quick to show you how you can do this. And I'm sure I covered this in my video, but I'm just going to, make it clear to you. Okay, yeah, you go to this public site, you're not registered, they want to charge you $40, maybe $100 for this article. You just copy it, and then you bring it into the USU library site, which is right here. Shoot, I gotta get to it here. Right there. And I start right here with just a general search if I can, and I'll put it right in quotes. And I'll click on that, search, and now it's going through the USU library databases. There it is right there, check for full text, and click here to open the selected resource in this window, and it will open it right in this window. Now, I am signed in with my A number, and it will ask you for that if you're not. And as soon as you sign in with your A number and banner or password, you should be able to have access, at least while you're a student. Now, let's say you're done with teaching and you want this article. You have professors that are your friends. Go ahead and send us an email, and I'll get it for you. But here's the full PDF now of that article. Download as a PDF, view as an interactive PDF, and now, Amy, you have complete access to that article. Okay, one more just for fun, because it is fun to find these things. It's like a little treasure chest. I got it back here. All right, next one. Who else had trouble here? McKenna had trouble. She said, inflated test scores gains is the problem to old teaching the tests. Okay, this was actually, I think this was a pretty old article. Maybe that was the problem. Again, I'm going to try the USU search. Go back here, main page, put it in quotes. And this doesn't always work. Sometimes I have to do a lot of digging. There was one, I think it was Kevin's, it took me forever to find, and I actually never did find that one. But if I really want something, I will email the USU library. In fact, it'll pop up, do you want to chat now? And I will send them a note and tell them what I'm looking for. Check for the full text on this one. I believe this one's going to have a similar type of look. Oh yes, if you can't find this one, this was that's right, this was an older article from 1990. And so this one, I did send a note to the librarian, and she says, we have it in the barn, we can get it for you, we can photocopy it for you and send it to you. But this was older than some of the articles that they kept online. So sometimes that happens. If you really want it though, you just contact the library and they'll either get it on interlibrary loan or they'll copy it for you and send it. What else was there in that one? So that's an older article. That's something to keep in mind. Oh, Amy, she said I had to do a little digging to find the right article. I chose to do my search on homework effectiveness, and she didn't like her first article, so she decided, because it was done in the 80s, good job, Amy, that's probably pretty old. So I searched for something a little more from the library, and she found this one. Whoops, doesn't work. Okay, Vesco, what's going on? So then I had to look at her title. The article title was Most Won't Do It. Right there, Examining Homework from 2017, recent article. Okay, back to the USU search page, which this is just the USU library page. I think she already has it in quotes. Go. There it is. And right away, it's a PDF, and I can take a look at that article, full text. And I have complete access to this particular article, which actually is from Idaho State University. So you might say, hey, this looks like a generalizable group. It's, in her case, she works with middle school, for it is diverse middle school. So this is a very relevant article potentially to her if it's well cited, if it's well thought out, if it's a research design. Yes, it has a purpose of the study. And how many pages is this if I scroll down? There's all the citations at the end, which would help you find additional articles. All right, I don't think I need to do another one, even though there are 2 more in there. And I consider it a personal challenge to find articles like this. Once I find it, I just keep digging till I can get to it. Amanda had another one. Oh, yes. Okay, I'll do one more. Curriculum development, standardized testing. I found the following link, which was very interesting. Okay, she forgot the H, but I know there's supposed to be an H there. And it's on 7th and 8th grade students in urban schools. So this one took me a little bit more work to find. So I put to find the title of the article, I put her link up here, and see what it is. It says it's the full text. Here it is, standardized test outcomes for students engaged in inquiry-based curriculum. And this is in a publication, Journal of Research Science Teaching. And if I click on full text of this article and I'm not signed into their site, they're going to want to charge me for the article. But I pay student fees. Well, in this case, I'm a faculty member, but you pay student fees. So you want to get to this article and you want to get to it through the USU library. Oh, there we go. And you just plug it in to here. I probably should put it in quotes, but this is a pretty long thing. It'll probably grab it anyway. Searching, there it is, perfect. Check for full text. And click this window to open the selected resource. If you're logged into the USU library, you will have complete access. Okay, let's just double check. Check for the full text. There it is. You will have access to the entire article. Sometimes it takes a lot of clicks to get where you need to be there. And you can download it from this particular issue and abstract, continue reading the full article, and there it is. There's the authors, 2007, the full article. So don't give in. Don't give in to not being able to find an article. Check the USU library. If you really can't do it by using their service and database, then go and send them an email, send them a note saying, I'm really looking for this article. Can you help me? And chances are there's a good chance that yes, in fact, they can help you. And so then they'll find it for you and send you that particular link. Trying to get back to the discussion here, but it looks like it just popped over and left the page I was working on. Oh, there we are. So that's a particular article that I was able to find with mostly a good resource. And then same thing with Cassie. Don't give in. You can find these articles, and if you need them even after you graduate, feel free to send me a note. I consider it a bit of a fun challenge to get these articles, especially when you're trying to do something to make your teaching better. Okay, that's it for my discussion post or my reflection for the week 4 discussion, and I look forward to week 5.